So the thing about this, yeah, is what you mentioned, right? As you're kind of going through the numbers here, that you had four different guys in the receiving group slash tight end that had 70 plus targets. You didn't have a single guy that had 80 plus. You didn't have a single guy that was a 900 receiving yard catcher last season. So it seems like that they're spreading the ball around. And yeah, last season, from a statistical perspective, that Jayden Reed was the number one guy. But when we talk about a lot of these teams, like we know who the number one guy in the off or number one wide receiver is, especially in this division, right? Lions, it's Amon St. Brown. For the Bears, okay, maybe 1A, 1B with Roma Dunze and DJ Moore, right? For the Vikings, well, of course, we know who the guy is. He's a stud, one of the best, if not the best wide receiver in Justin Jefferson, Jay Jetta. But this was a concern for the Packers ever since the Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams era was over, right? That trying to find that number one wide receiver, and it seems like they're trying to fill that void by going by wide receiver by committee. We don't talk about that for wide receivers. We talk about that a lot for running backs. But you have Jayden Reed. You mentioned Christian Watson in 15 games that he played, only 53 targets, 29 receptions. Did have 620 yards. So he was their downfield threat, only had 2 touchdowns. But this one is where you're kind of, this is another team that's probably from a, I don't know, week to week basis, or you're trying to figure out as the season progresses on who that number one guy is going to be. And they drafted Matthew Golden out of Texas, I believe, to come in and be maybe that number one guy for this team. But I think that this one is Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, and then you're kind of throwing the dice and trying to figure out who that number one or guy you're going to draft at the wide receiving group. Because I'd be curious to see what the ADPs are for these wide receivers here, Rod.
Yeah, so Jayden Reed is going off at 104 in a standard overall, and then 116 in a PPR. So, I mean, they're even getting less credit for PPR leagues than they are in standard leagues. Wide receiver 46 overall in a standard, 48 in a PPR. You talk about Romeo Doubs, 185 overall. He's being drafted wide receiver 62, and then in a PPR, he's going off at 211 and 65 as far as that one. Christian Watson, by the way, if you are curious, 316 overall, not even being drafted. Wide receiver 107, and then 338 in a PPR. So I think the consensus is that Jayden Reed is going to be the guy that you want from that Packers receiving core. But there's not a lot of confidence behind it because, again, he's going off very much in the tail end of your draft and sort of is one of those guys where he'll be a flex player for you. You just don't know how much you're going to get from him on a week-to-week basis. So he's a plug-and-play flex, but you hold your nose and expect the worst, I guess.